And now we have a presentation from Student Services. This is Daniel Blaylock and Ms. Louise Satano.
Hello. Hi there.
You guys are like a tag team tonight.
Song and dance.
Who's song and who's dance?
I'm definitely dance.
I'll do it.
She did band, she can probably play it.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for having us again for our yearly student services report that we do usually at the end of every summer. We welcome the opportunity to come back and kind of talk about our data from the year and what it means and what it will mean for us moving forward. So we're excited to be back. Just to clarify for a second, I'm Danielle Blaylock. I'm the supervisor of student services. My role is to oversee the student assistance specialists, K-12, the health teachers, the nurses, HIBs, DCP&P, drug and alcohol programming, that type of thing. Ms. Sultana is?
So I'm supervisor of counseling, 6 through 12, so it's college and career readiness. I work with the school counselors on academic programming for the students, transcript translating. A lot of our transient students, we sit and meet and we work through 6 through 12 to make sure we're providing them everything that they need academically. And then Danielle and I work together with the risk assessments and DCP&P and group counseling and individual counseling. So we kind of share some part of the role.
Right, so we have separate roles, but a lot of our roles overlap with the work that we do between the school counselors and the student assistance specialists. So we're kind of a tag team here. So I was thinking a lot. I happened to be on vacation last week, and I was thinking a lot as I'm entering into my 6th year into this position, which I can't believe. It feels like just yesterday I was still a school counselor at Hammersholt. I'm excited about the changes that we've made within the student services department and the direction that we've been able to go. As we know, the needs of our students socially, emotionally, and academically change constantly. Not just within East Brunswick, but in society. So we're constantly having to adapt and figure out the best way to address the needs of the students. And I'm excited and happy about the way that we've been able to move things forward, and when we look at the data each year, to be able to see where we're going and how things have changed. So that's what we're going to share with you a little bit tonight. Okay. So back a couple months ago, I was invited to come to a board meeting, and I shared a lot about the social and emotional wellness programming that specifically my department and the student assistance specialists have been doing over the past few years. This is something that's really been a focus for us, elementary as well as into the secondary levels. But just to highlight some of those again, we have the Superflex curriculum, which is now consistent grades K through 2 in all of the elementary schools. This is a social and emotional wellness programming component. It talks a lot about coping strategies, having students understand appropriate behaviors, things like that. The Alveus anti-bullying prevention program we've actually had since 2011 when the bullying law changed and the ABBR went into effect, but just last year we were able to get the support through the board, through professional development, to have all of our student assistance specialists retrained as trainers. In the Alveus anti-bullying program, we were able to last September retrain all of our staff in the anti-bullying prevention programs, and just this past summer we did a new training for our safety and climate teams, the core group of our safety and climate teams at all of the schools. So that's been, a big push in all of the schools. We also have PBSIS, which has been a grant program in multiple schools. And then there's the second step curriculum, which has also been in implementation since, before my time in this position, but it's really our core character education program in K through 8. It's in all of the health classes, and our student assistance specialists do push into the classrooms to help support that curriculum. Last but not least is my favorite, Sources of Strength, which we were able to bring in, is it 5 years ago now?
Yes, this is the 5th year.
This will be the 5th year. We were able to bring that in on a grant program. We now have that program, luckily, Hammersholt through high school, and I'm going to let Louise talk about that a little bit.
So everyone knows that this is our pride and joy, and we really care a lot about how we're implementing it throughout the schools. One of the things that we've looked at is kind of working on the transition time between the different buildings. So when students come from 5th grade to 6th grade, from Hammersholt to Churchill and from Churchill to the high school, we noticed that there's a lot a lot that goes into that and a lot of thought that goes in that. So the high school students in Sources of Strength are now visiting the elementary schools. So last year they went to all of the different elementary schools and presented to them with the wording and the vocabulary that we use for all the different ways of to tap into for coping skills when it comes to struggles. And then Hammersholt implemented Sources of Strength last year. So it was their first year to have the program, and it was very successful. Every year we're looking to meet to talk about how to make sure that it kind of doesn't get old, to say. So if a 6th grader gets trained as this peer leader, when the 12th graders get there, we don't have hundreds of them. So it's been interesting working with Source of Strength to implement that, because we're lucky with a board that supports student services the way that you do, that we're able to have a program that goes from middle school up to the high school and also visits elementary schools. It's unique to Sources of Strength as well. They're primarily in secondary schools, so we're very lucky to have that. And we're noticing a difference, and when we talk a little bit about the data and change, you'll see that because of the support that we have from the board and from central office, we've seen an effect throughout our schools.
Okay, good. So now we're going to take a little bit about the data that's in your report that you received. So some of the highlighted information that I just want to talk about, we're going to look at elementary first. One of the numbers that stands out at the elementary level is the number of groups that have been running at the elementary levels has gone down. So you would ask, obviously, why is that going down? Well, the first thing to note is that groups are developed and run based on a needs assessment. So the student assistant specialist will put out a needs assessment to parents, students, as well as teachers as to students that they feel would be appropriate for group counseling. And that's how they develop the groups of students that might be appropriate for one of the multiple groups that we run. However, over the past couple of years, as we talked about in the previous slide, we've been doing a lot of that whole group social and emotional learning. So we've been doing a lot of push-in where we're servicing all of the students in the classrooms. So not only pulling out those students that may be struggling with some social skills or ways to manage conflicts with their peers, we're now pushing into the classrooms and we're teaching those lessons to the whole group. Because what student can't benefit at an elementary level from learning appropriate social skills and from learning appropriate ways to manage conflicts on the playground and things like that. So we're doing a lot more push in, addressing the whole classroom in terms of the appropriate social behaviors, and therefore there's less of a need to do some more of that pull-out group counseling at the elementary level. We also have the classroom teachers in elementary are implementing the classroom meeting approach, which is a component of the Alveus anti-bullying prevention programming. So as part of the safety teams that work within the schools, student assistant specialists are providing classroom teachers with topics and curriculums that they can use to do classroom meetings. So whole classrooms are able to have conversations and talk about that social and emotional component as part of their classroom environment in their homeroom. We've also expanded our mentor programs, and that has helped to address a lot of our at-risk students that have been identified as needing that connection to a positive adult or a positive role model within the school, helping them to feel more supported. Our number of 504 students has also increased, and that is due to multiple factors. The first is that students with 504s have a medical condition where they require some additional accommodation. So these could be students that had been classified, they had been receiving special education services, now they no longer receive or qualify for special education services, but we can still support them in a least restrictive environment through supports of a 504. Or vice versa, students that have a medical condition that don't quite qualify for special education services, but we can meet their needs through a 504 before going to a higher level of care, which would be an IEP. We also have a lot more students that are just being diagnosed with mental health conditions, and that's just kind of part of the society that we're in today. In addition, our INRS numbers have been down at elementary school, but this is really due to the fact that the district has embraced the RTI model, which is the response to intervention. So between the instructional coaches, the math specialists, the reading specialists, we have a lot of supports that are going directly into the classroom environment to help the classroom teachers to support those struggling students. So they're able to get what's called a Tier 1 intervention before needing to approach the INRS committee and ask for the additional supports. Okay. Okay, so in addition, at elementary, our number of HIBs that have been investigated overall has been down, as well as the number of confirmed cases of HIBs has also been down. So why would that be? Well, since 2011, when the law changed, we have really been prioritizing educating both our students as well as our parents about what is HIB, what qualifies as harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and what is normal conflict. So again, we've done a lot of classroom lessons through the Alveus program, Second Step. Our SAC counselors are constantly in the classroom teaching about what is bullying, what is not, name the behavior, what's happening, use iMessages to talk about what's happening between you and another student, and really kind of weed out what is a normal conflict versus what is bullying. In addition, we've asked our principals to invite parents in. So when a parent requests an HIB investigation, invite the parent in at the end of the investigation and be able to explain to them why the incident did qualify or did not qualify as HIB, so that they can really understand where HIB falls within the law. And that doesn't mean that the incident is not going to be dealt with. It absolutely is going to be dealt with by the building principal as well as by the student assistance specialist, but it might not meet that qualification. So those, I think the education has helped to get those numbers to come down. Our numbers of students at the elementary level that have been referred for child study team referrals has gone up. Why is that? And I think we've really worked on the identification process. We're going through the tiers of intervention. We're using tier 1 interventions, response to intervention, then INRS, and if a student is still appropriate, then moving on to a special education evaluation. In addition, we have a lot of families that openly tell us they're moving into East Brunswick for our special education services, which really just speaks to the services that we've been able to provide. East Brunswick has really built quite a nice reputation for the services that we have, and we have parents that are absolutely moving in for what we're able to provide to them. So those numbers are a little bit up. Okay, Ms. Sultana is going to talk a little bit about secondary.
So some of the data also that you can see in the reports that you've been given, our risk assessments are up. So with risk assessments, part of that, what goes into that is a student assistant counselor and a school counselor is doing an assessment on a child to see if they're at risk of themselves. The reason why those assessments are up, partially because of the education piece. So as time has gone on, teachers, parents, students are educated about what that looks like, and they're also being able to come down. There's a more open communication with them being able to come down and speak to maybe a sources of strength mentor or somebody that they've connected to that they feel like comfortable enough with that they can go speak to. A lot of sources of strength is breaking down the walls between teachers, janitors, staff, secretaries, whoever's in the building to be there in support of our students, to break down that wall so that the students doesn't feel like they're snitching on their friend, but they're coming down to show support. So with that education piece and the social emotional education that they're receiving in the lower grades, we're now seeing more reports coming in. So when a report comes in, regardless of who's making the report, a risk assessment is done. So when that comes in from a student, from a staff member, from a parent, there's a risk assessment. We also have noticed with more security in the buildings, they kind of are in tune with our students, and our security, the people in the hallways are able to kind of make a connection with our students that may be more at risk. And they're giving heads up, or they're looking, or they're noticing that the student's acting a little bit different. Maybe they're not loud in the hallway that day. Maybe they're not as being Mr. Mayor walking down the hall. And the security officers have been coming more to our counselors, our SAC counselors, our case managers to report a change in behavior. So risk assessments are up because of the identification process, that more people are educated about the mental illness in the buildings and depression and anxiety, and just the struggles the students are having, and academic struggles to family struggles, and they're talking about it more. So that is, we see as a good thing. Risk assessments go up, means that we're kind of have an understanding of what our students are doing. Drug screens are down. This, again, speaks to the education across the board in all the elementary schools, Hammersholt, Churchill, the high school. Having the SRO presence in the building has certainly made a difference between a student maybe making a decision to do something and show up to school, as opposed to, making that second choice and choosing not to try things that in the past maybe they would have. Another piece of it is the awareness. So as we're putting more education, Brian Adams has come into a lot of the different classrooms when we're suspecting a student is struggling or they self-report. Brian Adams has come in and spoken to students about it in a way that's not aggressive or an authoritative, but an informative way. Like, listen, this is what we're looking at. This is the numbers in East Brunswick. This is what the path you're going to choose to go down. And I think the open conversation relationships that are being built have caused a lot of positive rollout within the buildings. 504s, same thing as elementary. It's least restrictive environment when it comes to a 504, so a student can stay in a gen ed environment with just maybe sit closer to the teacher. Maybe they need to leave class a couple minutes earlier, but a 504 accommodation keeps them in their least restrictive environment with a medical diagnosis. So as we're seeing more an increased mental health population, we're also going to see an increased 504 population. Intervention and referral services is a part of RTI. So that's something that we've had in all the secondary levels for a long time. RTI has kind of traveled from the elementary levels up through Hammersholt, Churchill, and now at the high school. An RTI model, again, goes to an instructional coach that's going in to work with a teacher that's maybe struggling with a student. It also can go to teacher mentors. It leads to best teaching practices to start with when we're looking at students that are struggling, and then it goes down to when maybe a student needs a little bit more of an intervention. Our classroom presentations are a new thing that we're kind of moving forward with. The same thing at elementary, to get more of a presence within the classroom. The school counselors are pushing into the different classes to do Naviance presentation. We have a gen ed study skills class now at Churchill to help some of our transient students fill in the gaps of maybe them coming in with maybe not the same education that a student that's been through East Brunswick their whole life has. So it's kind of giving a little bit more support. Our counselors are pushing into that. Increased numbers of one-on-one counseling sessions. Because we've had the support of the board and central office, our case loads are one of the lowest in the state. So I like to brag about that when I go to my counseling supervisors meetings, because we're very lucky to have all the face-to-face time with our students and really get to know our students. Group lessons, so we're also pushing in to speak to coping skills or social media awareness is something that's come up quite a bit in the past couple years, where every year it's changing. Every year there's a new app, every month there's a new app, every day maybe. So we really have to keep up with the different apps, and we're teaching the teachers, the parents, and the students about that. Also monthly at-risk meetings with building administration. Just the communication piece to say, we're seeing an uptick of this student come down to the counseling office. You've seen them in your office a couple times for referrals. What's going on? It opens up the conversation that Hammersholt is lucky to have with the house system, but now at Churchill and the high school, we're starting to look at at-risk meetings with building administration. So we're seeing a lot more support within the building, and there's a positive effect, as you can see with the data.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the numbers from last year. Now, looking at that data, what are our goals moving into the 18-19 school year? So from the social and emotional perspective, for me, it's to continue to expand that is social and emotional wellness programming in those classrooms, especially at the elementary school, but then also moving up into the secondary. Character education is really important. This past summer, we trained a core group of the school climate team that is ready to implement the climate goals for each individual school this upcoming fall, so we're excited about that. We're going to continue to expand sources of strength and hopefully merge it with our existing mentorship programs, because these two programs are very similar, so we're looking to kind of merge those together, bring our school mentors and our sources of strength advisors together, and kind of get a 2-for-1 deal in moving forward with that group of adults that are willing to give that extra time to support our students and be a positive role model. We're looking to align the high school SAC department with the other secondary models. I can't say thank you enough to the board for supporting the third SAC at the high school. So now we will have 1 SAC per grade at the high school, as we have had at Hammersholt and Churchill, which is really vital in being able to track those at-risk students as they move through the grades. So once a student comes in 6th grade, their student assistance specialist tracks them from 6th grade to 7th grade, the same 8th grade to 9th grade, and now having The third, at the high school, we will have a student assistant specialist that's able to track those students coming in as 10th grade, as the 10th grade class, and move with them right through graduation. So this is really going to be extremely valuable in being able to kind of keep tabs on those students, to transition from the previous school, Churchill, up to the high school, and be able to know what those students and those families need to be able to support them best. So I can't thank you enough for that. And we're also going to continue to expand the grant funding that we've been receiving from the Municipal Alliance. The Municipal Alliance, I've sat on that committee for many, many years, both as a community member and now as the supervisor. They've brought in tons of programs for drug and alcohol prevention to the district, and this year I'm really excited about two in particular. One is the Improbable Players, which I've seen in other districts. Other districts have used this group for about 18 years or more. I had the privilege of being able to see them in a neighboring district. We were able to get them approved for this upcoming school year. They'll be coming to both grades 7 and 10. It's a sober acting troupe of young adults based out of New York City. There's another one based out of Boston. But they go around to school districts and they do a performance, and they'll be coming to 7th, and the one in 10th grade will specifically be focusing on the opioid epidemic. So I'm really excited about that. They'll be providing professional development and resources for the health classes, and the professional development will be for both health teachers and student assistant specialists. So I'm really excited about that drug and alcohol programming for this upcoming year.
For us, Naviance is going to continue to grow. It's a way for us to make sure that we're tracking the students' college or career path as they're going from 6th through 12th grade. This year, our focus is going to be educating the parents a little bit more as well, so that when the classroom presentations and your child comes home and you say, what did you do today? They go, nothing. You'll have kind of more of that information of how to log on, what you can do yourself with Naviance. It's very exciting to go in and search different colleges. If you want your child to stay within a 2-hour radius, you can put that in. Way to keep them close to home. If you want to send them away, you're excited about it, you can put that in too. So it's just a way for us to communicate to parents. We're going to be working with the EVEA to have counselors go out to Ed Camp so that they're able to do different presentations so that parents also are aware of how to utilize Naviance. We also are holding our college fair. It's on April 4th, 2019. Hopefully there's no snow during that time. But we already reached out and we've already had about 30 colleges confirm. It's very large. We're excited about it. And you know, the PSA also has helped fund that in previous years. Churchill Junior High School does a college fair. So last year we had everything under the sun, including a tattoo artist. So we're looking to expand all the different careers that we bring to Churchill. So the 9th graders who are kind of figuring out what their roles are and where they're going to be and what they want to do, as well as the MCC continuing programming and support and education of the 8th and 9th grade students on how to utilize that, in addition to what electives to take if they're interested in going into a career right out of school. And then scope and sequence planning for career readiness. We're working with different counselors at Hammarskjold, Churchill, and the high school to align courses to make sure that we have tracks for any type of student that comes through East Brunswick. It's a lot of programming, but a lot of support, so we're excited about it, and it's been successful so far.
So thank you. Thank you for having us
Yes,
tonight.
thank
And if you have any questions about the report.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Well, just a little comment that I'm really happy to see us using the resources that are available through our township, the Municipal Alliance. Sounds like it's really a tremendous program, and the resources that are available to them are now available to us as well. And the other thing that I continue to be impressed by is that we're not going to sit on our laurels. We're not going to let a child pass by us without trying to make a difference for them. And that we are creating challenging goals for ourselves for the future. And I think that's really important that we continue to do that. And so it makes me feel good.
Thank you.
So great job.
I think it's important that we really look at each year, what are the needs of our students? Because each individual class has their own needs.
Right.
You know, there's ebbs and flows each year, and, you know I said it last time when I came and spoke, if I could keep my kids, in my pocket and carry them around and protect them in, my little bubble, I would, but we can't. So we really have to look at what are the ever-presenting needs that society as well as the township are experiencing, and look at each individual class of students and say, what do they need, and service that, as opposed to just putting blanket programming in. So I think that's really important, so thank you.
And one of the things I do want to mention too, we had an unfortunate situation this summer with a child being lost at Crystal Springs. And Danielle and her team got together in a moment's notice to provide counseling to a lot of people who needed it and some who just wanted it. And that response was so immediate, so fast. And the township gave Danielle and her team kudos for all that. I wanted to mention that publicly because
you.
that's a service that we provide at the district level that a lot of people
Right.
really don't know about.
So if I could take a minute to actually piggyback on that and mention, I'm very active, as well as my staff, and Louisa's staff have become very active in the Middlesex County Traumatic Loss Coalition, which is a group, a volunteer group that goes out for any traumatic event in the county that might happen, a traumatic loss, anything like that, and provides emotional support. It's called psychological first aid. We've been trained in it. We've been trained in disaster response and trauma. And over the past 3 years, my staff, my student assistant specialists, have been working on a trauma response manual for our district. You know, and I've said it multiple times that, knock on wood, we haven't had such a traumatic loss within our district. We've had losses of graduates and things like that, but we haven't had, you know, an active suicide, to my knowledge, within the district since I've been in this position. But you never know what could happen, so you really need to be prepared for that type of a response. And I'm very lucky to have, and we're very lucky to have the staff that we do, that I was able to send out a message very quickly, and we were able to do 2 full responses for them, and it was very well received. So thank you for mentioning that.
Lori, did you?
I do, actually, one of the questions I had, since you mentioned suicide, I had a parent recently ask me about whether we have hotlines in the district, because, and I don't have kids that are up at the high school yet, so I haven't dealt with any of this, but they had mentioned, because they had kids that had gone through the system, that there was something where when they called, if there was any kind of
Second floor?
Yes, second floor.
Second floor?
But they
So
were
it's a
concerned
24-hour-a-day
But is it-
hotline.
They
It's
had
staffed.
concerns about it. Is it all, it's all anonymous, it's all?
It's anonymous and it's
monitored?
staffed by professional.
It's not from
staffed-
East Brunswick.
No.
It's not from East
It's a
Brunswick.
county.
It's a county response.
But our students know where this is and know where to
Yes,
find
right,
it?
yes.
Okay, so it's anonymous, it's staffed, okay.
Yeah, it's staffed by
Okay.
mental health professionals. Right.
And then 2 other questions. The, Olveus, am I pronouncing it right?
Alveus? Mhm.
How does that compare to a hipster? Is it something that would be, is that something that would work
No,
with
so
it, or-
Alveus is really it's an educational program that's in the classroom. So similar to any type of a curriculum program
Okay.
where there's activities, they work on.
Proactive skills.
It's, right,
Yeah.
proactive skills. Hibster is a reporting tool so that we can
Okay.
be consistent with our HIB reports. So it keeps all of the information organized and
Documented,
documented
Accessible.
efficiently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one.
Lori asked as many as you want.
Good things come in threes. So, excuse my ignorance on this one.
That's okay.
When you mentioned drug screening being down,
Mhm.
does that then, am I to assume that that means that there's less drug instances, or we're just finding less instances where children, we see something and have to do something about it?
Right. So you have to keep in mind that we only do a drug screen within the school setting if we suspect a student is under the influence in school.
Okay.
Okay, so that's not to speak to anything that may go on the weekend.
Okay.
And we know that kids are kids and they make poor choices and, you know, sometimes they'll come in and report things later on. We do have self-disclosure policy where if any student self-discloses that they feel that they may have an issue with drug or alcohol abuse, there's no punitive
Sanction.
consequences, I
Right.
guess you would say. They will receive the support that they need from the student assistant specialist. They will get them on a program and they will help them to get clean and sober.
And we'll
Okay?
even work with families, talking to the student about how to speak to their families about it, how to get them help outside of school if they
Right.
need
How to
more
get
of
them the
therapy.
resources,
Right, okay.
how to navigate insurance, things like that. That's things that our student assistant specialists are trained in doing. We only do a screening within the school setting if we believe a student is under the influence at school.
At school.
That's what I think. I was hoping it would mean that instances were less, but I figured that was kind of my thought.
But you would have to hope that if there are less instances in school, then
School, yeah.
hopefully there's less activity outside of school. That would be our hope. But we can't guarantee that, of course.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if we have the data to draw the linkage, but at least anecdotally for me, I've seen the number of self-reports going up as we've added SSOs to the building.
Yes.
So more presence of law enforcement type people in the buildings, we see the self-report going up.
And that also speaks to the relationship between the students and the counselors and the students and the student assistance specialists, because when they explain that, you know, they're there to support them and they want to be able to provide the support, students are more inclined, once they have that positive relationship with the adult, they're more inclined to share that information knowing that there's not going to be repercussions.
I also think, I wonder too, when you think about the parents that say to a kid, if you go to a party and you get drunk, no questions asked, I will come get you, that maybe if you take away the consequences, the fear of consequences, the self-reporting goes up, that hopefully we're giving kids the ability to make mistakes and then kind of come to us and say, look, I've made a mistake, help me now.
And now I need help.
So hopefully that fear of consequences, if that's,
Where
you're not
it's
going to
not
want to call your
hidden,
mom and
right.
say,
Yeah.
pick me up from a party because I was drinking. If you're underage drinking, you're not going to want to go to an SSO. But maybe if we've taken that out for
Right.
these kids, that maybe they will reach out more.
The SROs have done a really nice job too with taking away that I'm a police
Stigma.
officer kind of,
Yeah.
you can't talk to me. So they've done a really nice job with having a presence of, instead of going, get that hat off, going, "Psst," again, where they'll
Yeah,
take
yeah.
the hat off. So the relationship between the SROs and with the SROs with the counselors coming down to check in to see how everyone's doing has been a big resource for us, for
Especially
sure.
at the high school.
Yes.
Brian has been very active in
Mhm.
the health courses at the high school, going in and having those conversations with the students and saying, listen, I'm here for you. If you're experiencing something, you can come to me, you can go to your SAC. And we are seeing more kids come forward.
And our at-risk groups, Brian has come in to speak to them. We also had Ed come in to just kind of, hi, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is where I'm from, and just kind of
Mentor them.
mentoring them has made a big difference with their open to the conversation or asking, like, listen, I did this in the past, like, I've made mistakes, like, what is that going to look like for me in the future? And having those kind of resources has been really beneficial for our at-risk group.
It breaks down the barriers between the adults and the students, and it helps them. They're young adults. They're getting ready to go out into the real world, and they need to be able to know who they can talk to, who they can trust, and what things they can get help with while they're here with us. So we see it as a benefit.
Thank you both.
Anyone else? I had a few. First of all, I want to congratulate all of you for volunteering with this Middlesex County Response Group. There is no better way to model the definition of community than what you're doing. So that's just wonderful to hear. Danielle, you know I am a huge Naviance fan. I'm like a Naviance groupie. Okay?
Me too.
So I
She
just
did the paper applications
I
first.
love Naviance. I just love to hear how we're using it more and more, and I still would love to have
Oh, a presentation.
a demonstration of Naviance, particularly for those board members and parents out there who don't have kids yet in the high school about what a great tool it is. So you promised.
Last year, we
Yes.
did it at a parent university. We did it as a staff of the parent university. It's very popular. This year, we're going to be at Ed Camp, just doing another presentation, but we certainly can come here.
It might
Some
be a
Chromebooks,
fun thing to
and we
do
can all
during
do it
the
ourselves.
year.
It's kind of
Yeah.
geeky to go in and do your own search and figure out like what you like. You know, like I would put in marching band, and I would make sure that's from me. Danielle would do that. So to put the things in that you're interested in, so that you can create your own inventory
Yeah.
and doing your interest.
And just to
inventory
see how the one tool, it's a one-stop shop.
for everything.
It's where you get your transcript sent out from, your teacher recommendations. You send out your SAT scores, your ACT scores, this and that. It's an incredible tool,
And at
so.
the primary levels, we're teaching the students, or not primary, well, sixth grade seems
Sixth
little to me.
grade, yeah.
So sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, we're also teaching them how to use it to figure out what electives they might
I
be
know, I
interested
love
in.
that.
So doing an interest inventory to say, hey, I don't know anything about STEM, but, you know, both my parents are artists, I might want to try that out. So it
Hey,
kind
we
of
can't get enough
speaks to that.
Naviance,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah.
I also, what struck me when you were talking about everything, all the slides, what kept coming back to me was the concepts of education, intervention, communications and connections, and about how everything we're doing is striving towards encouraging the connections, encouraging education to see where we need to do interventions. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of positive results that you pointed out. I was especially glad to hear about all the programs that we're bringing into the classrooms. I know Barbara and I have talked, and other board members have talked about that. We never want to be a district, and we're not, a district where these kind of programs are relegated to extracurricular activities, because it has to become an integral part of the classrooms for so many reasons. And I love the fact that that's what you have made our district look like. And thank you for that.
The curriculum department has been very nice about letting us come in and take away some of their teaching time too. So Jessica Lux, the department chair, has been very open to the school counselors pushing in and taking time from.
But they need to learn, the kids need to learn
So
about
everybody's
this,
working
just
on
like
it.
they need
Yeah.
to learn about history and math and science and language.
The other thing I
and-
should have noted earlier when I was talking about the Alveus classroom meetings, we've been doing that in the elementary schools. This year, moving forward, we've partnered with Ruth Chang for foreign language, and she's going to allow us to do the classroom meetings within the foreign language classes. So we're now going to have that at the secondary level as
Oh,
well.
that's
So I should have
great.
mentioned that.
That's terrific.
Mhm.
Look, if you think about it, the look on the face of a kindergartner, that kind of mix of awe, curiosity, excitement, and terror, it's that same look that you see when the kids walk across the stage at 12th grade graduation, right? It's that same look of all the combination of emotions. So they're starting one place and.
That's the same look we saw in the new teachers this week.
At the clap out.
That's a good thing to take out of it, Dr. V. So but all the things that go in between that are
Right.
what you're doing.
Right.
So, sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
Enjoy
for having
whatever's
us
left of
again.
your summer.
Yes,
Thanks,
you as
ladies.
well.
Nice
Thank
job.
you so much.
Tara, from our new teacher?
I would describe that as an emotion, yes.
Okay, well,
Is that not accurate? Tara?
That's because she was never a classroom teacher, okay? That's why she's upset about that.
By day 3, I think Nicole had gotten them to a place where they thought, they can do this. But day 1, yeah, I think Tara was probably an emotion that was pretty prevalent in the room.
well, okay, that is a good advertisement for people who want to come work here. So, way to go. Go Bears.
The rigor is high.
And this is a perfect segue into for the good of the cause of the public.